All right. Welcome to another edition of Sabbath Lounge. This is Matt,
And Jake here.
and we are just excited that you came along and joined us today.
That's right. You specifically, the one right there in your seat.
Yeah, thank you for finding us, and we ask that you would share this, like, comment, subscribe.
Yep.
Let us know you're out there.
Visit us on all the websites and social medias.
And to let us know that you really listen to this, maybe they give us, what do they need to give us? A scale?
Let's give us a good contrarian comment. We like those.
Yeah, that'll work. But what emoji? Like a blindfold, a scale?
I gotta say, I don't follow the emoji crowd too much.
I
so
speak emoji, Jake.
Okay. Well, maybe you should come up with
I'm
these
fluent in emoji.
Okay, stapler.
Stapler.
Red stapler.
Have you seen my stapler?
Yeah.
Or tell us what line that movie, what movie that line is from,
That's right.
if you know.
And then we'll know that you've watched this.
Yes, and we know that you are a movie nerd. Well, Jake, we're going to talk about blind justice.
Which is related to our opening.
Yes, just exactly. Perfect.
So, yeah, we hear a lot of this blind justice and how that's how things should be.
Yeah, that justice is supposed to be blind.
That's right.
So we're going to take a little bit of the history of justice and who this is and what it means, where it came from, and then we'll look at what does the Bible actually say.
Right. Yeah, I can't see a statue now without thinking idol.
Right.
False god somehow.
Yeah. So this is a little bit of history, I guess, and these are things that you can clearly Google, research, check out yourself. All right.
Yep. And if you did, you may have ended up here to watch this.
That's right.
So
that's right. All right. Hopefully I can figure out how to
advance
this. Here we go.
We are professionals.
Yes. So who is Lady Justice? So we're going to take a look at blind justice and who this Lady Justice person was as we're zooming in to her. There we go. So it all starts with Egypt. Why does it always go back to Egypt, Jake?
Everything is centered around Egypt, apparently.
Yes, and it's pretty much because it is one of the oldest civilizations and that we have recorded, and just all the weirdness with the mystery religions, it starts in Egypt.
Yeah, I think too because they're the civilization that their culture was such that it remained.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. The way that they built their architecture and all this kind of thing, where they exist on the map, that kind of thing, all kind of leads to how their weather there allows for these things to be preserved for this long.
Yeah, it was so hard to conquer Egypt because they're right there on the ocean, and then it's pretty harsh. The only place you can live is right there on the Nile, and you're on the tip of Africa, and it just was not an easy thing to go conquer and subdue. And so they stayed and reigned for a really long time. So this Lady Justice thing kind of starts back at this Egyptian goddess, and did we say, how do you say this?
Ma'at, I guess.
Ma'at. And these are all the same people.
All the same false
gods. These are idols, and we do not condone idol worship or goddess worship. But it is important to understand that we've seen these symbols in our country. And Jake, are we saying we have idols in our country?
I've said that.
Yes. We clearly do. And if you've never studied that, you should study. Step one, stop listening to this and go study that out. Yep. Because that's an important concept, and you may have missed it, that there's idols here and now, and they're, unfortunately, they're on our Capitol buildings and lots of places.
Yeah, we like to think that our we're in 2022, so idols now are just things like money and ideas. But no, it's actually, that too.
Yeah.
But there's also these kind of things that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and then just their meanings didn't go away. This is what they are. This is what they mean.
Right. And
So,
you're going to see some interesting tie-ins to culture today.
yep. So this same one that we find in Egypt, then the Greeks took her and she became Themis, and then the Romans took her and became
Justitia, I guess.
And so,
which sounds a lot like
justice.
justice.
Yeah. So all the same deity, if you will. I use the term deity loosely, lowercase g, false god.
Right, false god. So yeah, just a quick plug on an earlier series we did. Go check out our series on the Constitution and the Bible.
Mm-hmm. That's
and we'll
right.
talk a little bit about this kind of stuff.
Yep. So we're going to start with this Egyptian goddess.
Ma'at.
It also could be called Isis.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah. And this deity was not blind. She judged men's hearts after death with a feather scale. So, and the feather scale. So the Egyptian goddess Ma'at was not to upset the law and order. So what was meant by this is it was kind of like a caste system. The rich were supposed to stay rich and the poor were supposed to stay poor. And she gave order to chaos. Without Ma'at, it became chaos.
So it's this. I think, along with most false deities, this was meant to be an idea that you adhered to. So
yeah, which is kind of interesting. And the reason I put this in here, so as we go through this journey, think about today in America's justice system, and we say that we have blind justice, but the things that we are calling blind justice, the deity of blind justice, which if you ask people today in law, and they would tell you justice is blind, and they probably know something about this deity and would refer to it. And we have this picture of the blind justice with the scales in her hand.
And they'll tell you what today's meaning is about it.
Yeah.
What we understand today, but what did it used to mean is kind of where we're going.
And so here at the very beginning, this justice deity was to keep the status quo.
Right.
Which is kind of interesting because unfortunately in America, you can make a pretty good argument that there's been a big push to keep poor people poor and rich people rich. It's pretty hard not to argue that there's been that.
Yeah, and not even just the rich and poor thing, but if you imagine the chaos that would erupt in certain cities if you just actually went and started dueling out actual justice in high levels where it needs to be dueled out, you would see some chaos.
Yeah.
And you don't want to upset that. So let's not actually pursue justice in reality. So,
yeah. And that's really kind of what got me on this, is thinking about those kinds of things. And I love the Dark Batman series. Is it Christopher Nolan that did all those? And Christopher Nolan struck a chord of humanity especially with multiple Batmans there, where they were so dark, and especially the one with Heath Ledger, where he gives the people the bomb and they can blow up the prisoners.
The prisoners could blow up the good guys, or the good guys could blow up the prisoners.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I thought, man, that was genius, because he is striking a core issue. That that's a deep, deep issue.
Yeah, and that I think the genius behind that is that character in that movie, specifically, not in the the world of Batman or anything, but in that specific movie, the Joker is meant to be portraying Satan.
Yeah.
And so that's what he does. He introduces chaos to things, and that's the point.
And isn't now, correct me if I'm wrong, you probably know your superheroes better than I do, but is there something about justice with Batman? Or am
There
I
is
thinking
something about justice.
about someone else?
The cloak of justice, I think. No. The utility belt of justice. I mean, his whole thing is since justice isn't being carried out, he's the one to carry it out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I was thinking there was something about it, but I don't remember. But he does connect.
Check that out in our upcoming.
Yeah,
series,
maybe you know more about
our upcoming Batman series.
That's right, where we critique those movies. So anyway, I don't know how that would work, but
we don't truly have plans to do that.
No, we don't. We don't. So back to the topic of Lady Justice. So we start with Egypt, and we continue to talk about the Egyptian goddess Ma'at, and it basically was also to give bread to the hungry and clothe the naked, which seems like a good thing.
It does. So it's similar to this makes me think of so right now at the founding of the country, basically they had put this weight on some higher power than us has to be the giver of righteousness, because if we don't assign it to the higher power, which some would argue was the one true God, right? Yeah, or some would say it was they were just uh, believers in a God,
Mm-hmm.
But point being that if it doesn't come from that higher power, men decide right and wrong, and that goes downhill quickly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the idea here is their government is this give bread to the hungry, clothe the naked kind of situation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. So, so this one, we got these from Wikipedia, and Jake, would you read this?
Yes. So listen real close here, because this is you might find some application to this.
Okay.
Ma'at, as a principle, was formed to meet the complex needs of the emergent Egyptian state that embraced diverse peoples with conflicting interests. The development of such rules sought to avert chaos, and it became the basis of Egyptian law. From an early period, the king would describe himself as the Lord of Ma'at, who decreed with his mouth the Ma'at he conceived in his heart. So do any of those concepts strike you like, oh, that's what's happening today?
Yes, for sure. And so this, I think the part you're talking about is this very end part about decreeing with your mouth and conceived in your heart.
Right. So it's the idea that, the Holy Spirit tells me what to do, so my heart is really leading me, and it's whatever you've conceived in your heart is what you're calling the Holy Spirit, because it's not being tested to Torah.
Yeah.
It would be what our stance would be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then also this idea of the state, the Egyptian state, being set up for these rules, and the Egyptian law being based on this idea of the diversity of people. So I see that a lot today.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, as time goes on, we get to the Greeks, and the Greeks basically don't invent anything. They just they borrow heavily upon the people before them, which came from the Egyptians. So this is the Greek goddess Themis, and notice this one is not blind. And Jake, who are its mother and father? Actually, the image in the background, it is blind.
The image is blind, but in
um,
this case, it was not. So this is, if you've ever heard of Gaia, or if you've
Gaia's
ever heard
bad.
or if you've ever heard of Uranus.
Or as I like to say, Uranus.
I think changing it didn't make it much better. There is this big push to change it to Uranus, though, I think.
I always taught it that way. Yeah.
Really? It was always Uranus to me, but we are children.
Yes.
So what was the point of this?
So in this one, she gave man rules and enforces them through nemesis.
That seems to be another goddess or
Yes.
god
Uh-huh. And then
with
the
a G.
Romans took it and they call it Justia or Astrea. And this one is blinded. And so from the 16th century, the Lady Justice has often been depicted wearing a blindfold. The blindfold was originally satirical, in addition, intended to show justice was blind to the injustice carried on before her. But it's been reinterpreted over time and is now understood to represent impartiality, the idea that justice should be applied without regard to wealth, power, and other status. The earliest Roman coins depicted Justia with the sword in one hand and the scale in the other, but with her eyes uncovered. Justia was only commonly represented as blind since the middle of the 16th century. The first known representation of blind Justia is Hans Gring's 1543 statue in somewhere there. So in that
The
source,
Gurgikiksenbrunnen.
yes, that it just flows right off the tongue.
Oh, in burn. Yeah, I
And
gotcha.
burn.
So something that jumps out to me real big here is that it was this, they put a blindfold on it because there was no justice and justice was not being carried out. And then as we do, we co-opted it to mean whatever we want it to mean.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So more about the Roman goddess. Jake, would you read this one?
I will give it my best shot. Instead of using the Janus approach, many sculptors simply leave out the blindfold altogether. For example, atop the Old Bailey Courthouse in London, the most important courthouse in London, a statue of Lady Justice stands without a blindfold. The courthouse brochures explain that this is because Lady Justice was originally not blindfolded, and because her maidenly form is supposed to guarantee her impartiality, which renders the blindfold redundant. So, since she's a woman, obviously,
Yeah, she's
she
blind.
is impartial to things. Okay, another variation is to depict blindfolded Lady Justice as a human scale weighing competing claims in each hand. An example of this can be seen at Shelby County Courthouse in Memphis, Tennessee.
All right, so that kind of is the evolution of that part, and then we're going to go into Fortuna and blindness. Medieval representations of fortune emphasize her duality and instability, such as two faces side by side, like Janus, another Batman reference. Two-Face. Mm-hmm. One face smiling, the other frowning, half the face white, the other half black. She may have been blindfolded, but without scales. Blind to justice. She was associated with the cornucopia, the ship's rudder, the ball, and the wheel. The cornucopia was where plenty flows from, and Helsman's rudder steers fate. The globe symbolizes chance, and the wheel symbolizes that luck, good or bad, never last. So,
whereas in reality, let's see, luck is a pagan idea, right? So that whole good luck, okay, how about be blessed?
yeah.
Or something other than luck. Oh, the Batman thing. He just says, "I am justice." He just calls himself justice.
Yes. Okay. Very good. I knew there was some connection. So, yeah.
The ultimate connection.
So the blindness seems to be connected to being blind to partiality, but in Roman context, it was connected to fate and fortune.
So, like most pagan deities.
Yeah. So the question is justice blind? Is being a blind justice, is this good? So after researching it, I believe that you can come to the conclusion that blind justice means they don't have vision and they stumble around.
Yeah, and that's certainly, when we are a channel that discusses going back to the roots of things, and when you pull from the roots, this is what you find for blind justice. And if it's bad in the root, it's bad in the fruit, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, put that on a t-shirt. Bad in the root, bad in the fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Well, we're going to look at the scriptures now. What does scripture
right.
say?
That's what the deal is, right?
Yeah. All right, so 1 Samuel 12:3. Jake, what does it say?
Behold, here I am, witness against me before Yahweh and before his anointed, whose ox have I taken? Or whose donkey have I taken? Or whom have I defrauded? Whom have I oppressed? Or of whose hand have I received any bribe to blind my eyes therewith? And I will restore it to you.
Interesting. What does he say about being blind here?
That you're blinded because you've been bribed therewith.
So, do you think he's saying it's good to be blind in your justice?
It doesn't sound like it.
No. No. So, I think that the Bible says that this is an example where being blind to justice is not preferred.
Right. That it falls into that category that early on that was talking about. It was blinded because they justice actually wasn't being upheld.
Mm-hmm. So then Proverbs 28:27.
He that gives unto the poor shall not lack, but he that hides his eyes shall have many a curse.
So hiding your eyes, do you think you could say that's the same as being blindfolded?
I would think it's similar. So here you're blind to the world around you, the needs of the world around you.
And it's going to lead to a curse.
Right.
Which, once again, does not sound like being a blind justice is a good thing. And then Exodus 23:8.
And you shall take no gift, for the gift blinds the wise and perverts the words of the righteous.
So what do you think this is talking about?
It turns you into a pervert when you're blind.
Straight to a pervert.
Hey, I'm in the Bible here. I'm just reading. I'm just
reading what it says.
Just reading the mail. No, it's so. This is again. It's kind of talking about a bribe. You know, if you take a bribe, it's so you'll close your eyes to what is going on.
In Deuteronomy 6:19.
You shall not wrest judgment. You shall not respect persons, neither take a gift, for a gift does blind the eyes of the wise and pervert the words of the righteous.
Once again, blinding being blinded,
perverts.
being blinded by a gift is not a good thing, and it helps. It does you can't see what is just or unjust if your eyes are covered.
Right.
So, when in the end, when it comes down to it, this concept of blind justice that we've supposedly built our American legal system by, and we think it's such a good thing, but what are we really saying? So, I think in the end, what you may have thought about blind justice before, it may be a bad thing, and so. If we truly have blind justice in our legal system, the Bible says that means they've been bribed. And I think that's where, when I first started this is kind of where my mind was going, because in the legal system, Jake, do you think in our world today that often people with a lot of money can go to the courts and get away with things?
I've never seen that happen a day in my life.
Never seen that happen. So there's many instances where people can get a better lawyer and they get off, and no one, the lawyer's not saying they're not guilty, but they just find some technicality to let their person squeak off. And so many times this blind justice concept means somebody has been bribed.
Right. And you see that in that laws are not upheld. And we see a lot of laws today that either refuse to be upheld or it just gets bogged down in the system because for political gains and things like that. I mean, there's an interesting phrase that that someone says that I think is quite true, and it kind of falls in line with this, and it's that we're not a nation of laws, and we never will be. We're a nation of political will, and always will be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this idea that you're only going to get the justice that you push for.
Yeah.
And because you can corrupt that system.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's an interesting thing to look on, to ponder, is justice blind? Because you can make a strong argument that many of our poor communities have been purposely oppressed. Purposely, justice has been purposely blindfolded for lots of reasons. Sometimes I think mostly it's done this way because it makes people easier to control. And, I definitely think you can make an argument for multiple ethnicities in the U.S. that they've been purposely oppressed, if you will, for reasons of manipulation. That they obviously the Indians, that's a clear one, but even the African American populations, by the way they were often put in these tiny areas and in these urban centers, and just I
The whole
think,
Great Society programs and all that stuff.
yeah, I think that it was a targeted thing that oppressed them, and they didn't even, they didn't realize it, but the powers that be did that intentionally
for the gain of power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they could control them and manipulate them, and now they use it to get people to vote with the way they want them to vote.
Right.
And most people just go along right with it and don't question any of it. But
Yeah.
And you do often see that poor people don't get the same benefits as rich folks do. So there's just and even in the corporate world, a little company goes and sues a bigger company. They usually doesn't go well for the little company because the big company can
Has
throw
more
so
money.
many lawyers and fight everything. Eventually, the little company, they don't have that time to devote
they
to
don't
it.
have the time and the resources to spend their lives in court fighting.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and they bank on that, and they know that eventually you're going to quit. And even if you're just an individual trying to sue a corporation, good luck, because they can drag it out forever. And they know that you're probably not going to have the patience that they have, and they can pay lawyers on their roll forever.
Right.
And a whole army of them. But anyway, so what do we say in the end? Is justice blind? Is this a good thing?
No, I think justice should be able to see the scales that are in her hand and be able to know what exactly it's you're trying to measure out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it would be even better if it was a scale without a person there.
Yeah. And so just something to think about when you see her, maybe consider that, is she blind because she's been bribed?
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting take on it. And once again, we appreciate you stopping by to take a listen to Sabbath Lounge. And
let us know what you think.
Give us some kind of emoji that goes with blind justice. Let us know that you hung in to the very, very end.
That's right.
And if there's a scale emoji, maybe that would be perfect. So, but we appreciate you sharing, liking, commenting, and anything else, Jake?
Just catch us on the next episode.
All right. Well, thank you for checking us out. And this is Matt
and Jake here,
signing out.
Bye. Bye.